I want to show you a tool that I've been using that I think people will get stoked about. This is a tool called Help This Book. So I am writing a book right now. It's called Sponsor Magnet, and one of the scariest parts of writing a book is opening it up to early beta readers. To give you, feedback on how it's going so far. Essentially, the typical path that most prospective authors take or aspiring authors take is they go into a cabin by the lake and they go in there for 6 months in a writing retreat and they don't talk to anyone. And then they emerge with what they think is their masterpiece. And then they release it to crickets, right? They publish it, maybe self-publish on Amazon or whatever. And they feel very demoralized and crushed. And so from the beginning, I've sought very much to involve my audience as early as possible in the process, to the point, Colin, where I wrote the first 4 chapters and then I sent it out to people. I didn't even finish the book. And so this tool is called Help This Book. You can highlight any area of the text and then click love this. And people say,
Mhm.
oh, this really resonated, right? And then you just upload this. And so what you see is like you've got this beautiful tapestry of feedback that people have left. And so in my author view, it's really useful because you can see, okay, which chapters are people getting hung up the most. You can weight it by
Yeah.
word count, for example. So like, for example, chapter 1 was the shortest and it had the most comments. It's like people are really, it's so you can even visually see like people are really falling off because
Yeah.
they really found a hard time getting through chapter 1. And so and if you want to go through like the detailed feedback, you can click through and disposition it. And man, it's been such a beautiful process to get an understanding of like where people are getting stuck. And really at the end of the day, the goal is to write a book that is useful, right?
Yeah.
This is the book that I want people to not only get value out of, but also recommend to other people. There's
Mm.
a course that I went through called the Modern Author Academy by Rob Fitzpatrick, and this is his software that he's created with some partners. And it's just been such a transformative tool for me because the goal at the end of the day is like his whole thesis is that you can actually engineer your book to be recommendable by writing it in a very specific way. And so this tool has played a big role in that, and so I've been really loving it.
This is really interesting. You've got so much feedback here as well. I mean, even just seeing the volume of feedback must be really heartening. Like, you've only written 4 chapters. What I hear from book writers is that often the last 20% is 80% of the work. Classic 80/20 rule. So, seeing this feedback, seeing this reaction to it must be actually a really good tool to just keep moving and be motivated to finish the thing too.
Dude, but it was terrifying. I gotta be honest, like opening up myself to this feedback because it's like you put
Yeah,
something out into the universe and then people be like, "That sucks." No one really said like that sucks, but people were like, "This doesn't make
you're
sense. This
yeah.
isn't good." Yeah, and so it's having the humility, I think, kind of having your ego in check a little bit. And to be honest, I completely rewrote the first section of the book after receiving the feedback on my first version of the book, and it's
Really.
way better now. I put out the first one and I was like, "This is awesome," and then I got all this feedback and I was like, that's actually that's a good point. Just a quick anecdote of something
Mhm.
that I changed was that I spent a lot of time thinking about the reader persona or the profile, like who is the best type of creator to read this book. And initially I was thinking, this is the creator who already knows that sponsorships are awesome. I don't want to start the first section where like, here's 10 reasons why sponsorships are awesome. That wasn't the person I wanted to write the book for. I wanted to be like, hey, I'm not going to put my kid gloves on here. They're awesome. Let's just dive right into it, right? But
Mhm.
even people who are really experienced in sponsorships was like, hold on, take me out to dinner first. You're being a little too abrasive here and
Yeah,
like curt there's too much brevity. You've over-indexed on brevity, right? And
yeah.
so it really, I started, telling more stories and kind of just getting easing people into the process. I think is was one big outcome. So yeah, it's been super super useful.
How did you get over that fear then? Because I mean, that is huge. That is massive. Like loads of everyone knows they need to ask for feedback. Everyone feels terrified by it, like you've just suggested. But how did you do it anyway?
I think from the beginning, when I started educating creators around this process around sponsorships, I've been very open about everything. I've talked about when I started first coaching. I started when I shared screenshots of all the ups and the downs when I launched my first course. I've shared everything very publicly, especially on Twitter slash X. And so it just felt pretty natural to do the same thing on these new projects that I'm doing. And the way that I've always looked at it is that um, the people that I aspire, and I'm sure we'll talk about this when we get into the creator section, is like the people that I aspire to are sharing both the ups and the downs. Like when they share a big blog post recap of like their year and they share all the awful things that happened to them alongside all
Yeah,
the awesome
yeah,
things, I'm always like, I relate to that way more. The people who are like constantly flexing, oh, I made this $10,000, $50,000 on my launch or whatever. I identify way more with the person who was like, I just lost like $30,000 like on ads or something. I was trying
yeah.
like cold ads or something. I was like, yeah, I've been there. I've done that. Right. And so I guess that's where it comes from, is like, I want to be that person to just like relate to, because I feel like that's way more common than the wins.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's reminding yourself that the content you consume, that's the parts that you love, that's the parts you engage with. Yeah, that's really
Mhm.
interesting. Because it's easy to forget that part, isn't it? The fact that you spot more of the positives, you always hook onto the positives, but they're not the bit that really engages, not the bit that really
Mhm.
interests us.
I mean, I think the final comment you mentioned about the
Yeah.
volume of the feedback that I received, this
Yeah.
was from only 21 readers.
What? Okay.
You don't need, so I guess if anyone's watching or listening and is
Yeah.
thinking this feels like a very overwhelming thing, what I was shooting for is getting 50% of the people I invited to provide feedback, and that's what happened. I almost to the number, like I invited 40 people and 20 people actually did it. And
Yeah.
so it really doesn't have to be an overwhelming process.
Thanks for watching another episode of the Creator Toolbox. To get the full podcast, just go over to creatortoolbox.alitu.com. That's creatortoolbox.alitu.com, and you'll get all of the show notes there with links to everything we've mentioned in this video. And of course, if you want to support the content we put out, please do check out Alitu. Alitu is our podcast maker platform. It's call recording, audio cleanup, editing, and publishing all in one place. It really is the easiest way to create a great podcast. Go over to alitu.com. That's ALITU.com. Try it out for a week and see if it suits you. Thanks again, and we'll see you on another episode.